Okay. Go. Good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and podcast. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so you can follow along. In accordance with our group conscience from October of 2023, we will also be putting our podcast on YouTube, again in audio only. We feel that this is an effective way to carry our message to those seeking recovery in Alcoholics Anonymous. Tonight's recap will start on page 63, where it says Next We Launched, and on page 66, We're Short-Lived. And our study tonight will start on page 66, It is Plain That a Life, and end on page 67, Set These Matters Straight. And are there any announcements?
I don't know of anything happening in the near future. Hi family, my name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic. And Picklepalooza, 4th of July, 2024, here at my house. We got about 16 or 17 of us that are going to be here. Feel free to come join us if you can. You are more than welcome to. Sleeping accommodations might be a hammock from the tree, but that's okay too. And we will be doing our 4th step workshop over that weekend as well on the first Monday of the month. I don't think we have a group conscience at that time. Do we have a group conscience then, Trish?
July 8th is our next group conscience.
Wow. Okay. So the following Monday. So, all right. Very, very good. And good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic. And welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment with the monks, followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, as not to distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. And just a friendly reminder that absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share, and we will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And on that note, let's bring in the monks to do what the monks do best. Help us get centered. Enjoy your time with God, folks. Trish.
Let's,
Okay.
let's have our fog light prayer.
Oh gosh, boy, I'm not with the program. Hang on just a second. Boy, obviously, the one thing I forgot to pull up. Please join us in our family's fog light prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
Let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Pinky.
Thank you, Trish. Hi, my name is Alyssa. I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Dance and Pickle to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Dance and Pickle.
You're muted, Molly.
Let's try that again. Hello, everybody. My name's Molly. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered but not cured, that presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime, but we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in the body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you, Miss Molly. Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatted for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the Buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rates was as follows. From the board to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page X says, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapse, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands for the people joining us for the first time?
Don't think we have any.
No. And then the recovered alcoholics. These are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week? Do belly button birthdays count?
Well, congratulate you on your belly button birthday.
Okay. All right. If you should require a Big Book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address Venmo or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a Big Book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you and see you next week.
Thank you so much, Pinky and Molly. Thank you for your service tonight. Greatly appreciated. From Chapter 2, There is a Solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 4. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 5. Please refer to page 562 of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. Come on in, Art.
Hello everyone, my name is Art. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and we're looking at Tradition 5 this evening. And it states, each group has but one primary purpose: to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. That's the short form. And the long form isn't a lot longer than that, but it reads as follows. Each Alcoholics Anonymous group ought to be a spiritual entity having but one primary purpose, that of carrying its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. So, according to this tradition, the only purpose for having meetings is to do 12-step work, carrying the message. I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from the 12 and 12 that kind of bring out what this tradition is all about. There is another reason for this singleness of purpose. It is a great paradox of AA that we know we can seldom keep the precious gift of sobriety unless we give it away. If a group of doctors possessed a cancer cure, they might be conscience-stricken if they failed their mission through self-seeking. Yet such a failure wouldn't jeopardize their personal survival. For us, if we neglect those who are still sick, there is unremitting danger to our own lives and sanity. Under these compulsions of self-preservation, duty, and love, it is not strange that our society has concluded that it has but one high mission: to carry the AA message to those who don't know there is a way out. And then the 12 and 12 relates a story of somebody, and I'm not sure who this was, probably Bill. I'm not going to read the whole story, but restless one day I felt I'd better do some 12-step work. Maybe I should take out some insurance against the slip, but first I'd have to find a drunk to work on. So I hopped the subway to Town's Hospital, where I asked Dr. Sookworth if he had a prospect. Nothing too promising, the little old doc said. There's just one chap on the 3rd floor who might be a possibility, but he's an awfully tough Irishman, and I never saw a man so obstinate. And then he goes on to tell the story of meeting this man, and he was able to gain his confidence, but then when he started to talk about the spiritual aspect of our program, he says, I no sooner got the word spiritual out of my mouth than he pounced. Oh, he said, now I get it. You're proselytizing for some damn religious sect or other. Where do you get that no angle stuff? But he was able to calm him down by saying, I belong to a great church, or the man says, I belong to a great church. That means everything to me. you've got a nerve to come in here talking religion. And then his response, "You have faith," I said, "perhaps far deeper than mine. No doubt you're better taught in religious matters than I. So I can't tell you anything about religion. I don't even want to try. I'll bet, too, that you could give me a letter-perfect definition of humility. But from what you've told me about yourself and your problems and how you propose to lick them, I think I know what's wrong. Okay?" He said, "Give me the business." "Well, I think you're just a conceited Irishman who thinks he can run the whole show." And so he goes on to talk about this guy, and then in conclusion he says, "Years later, this tough Irish customer liked to say, 'My sponsor sold me on one idea, and that was sobriety. At the time, I couldn't have bought anything else.'" And so this kind of it illustrates the necessity for this tradition, that we can't mix this message that we carry with religion or with any other. I mean, this is our primary focus. Is how do we stay sober? And we learn that in order for me to stay sober, I have to give it to somebody else, and I have to try to bring someone else into the idea of sobriety. And it kind of ties in with tradition one, where common welfare comes first. That AA unity is of the greatest importance. And so we have to be united in the idea that the only purpose for having AA groups and meetings is to carry our message to the still suffering alcoholics. And if we don't do that, our group will die. So that's what I have for tonight. Thank you, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for your service, sir. Greatly appreciated, my friend. And now it's time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of things said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as it's outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. So what you're about to hear is one of those things that you hear, and then Kenny is going to come in and tell us what the book actually has to say. Here's that thing that you hear. You're in the right place. Kenny, what does it have to tell us on page 95 in the 4th paragraph?
If he thinks he can do the job in some way, other prefer some other spiritual approach, encourage him to follow his own conscience.
Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for your service tonight.
As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers, and colored pencils, crayons too if you have them, so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
From experience, broken crayons work really, really well. In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight, we are going to start our recap on page 66, and that will be read by Lisa, followed by our study portion, which will be read by Jim. And nope, I think the recap is on 63, ending on 66, read by Lisa, followed by our study portion, pages 66 and 67, to be read by Jim.
We have too many people with the first initials in this meeting, but don't go away. Please drag a friend along with the same initials. It will be greatly appreciated. After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podiums, starting back where our study portion began on page 66 tonight. And the answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified. And multi-part questions are simply one sentence answers split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we're going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, observations based on what we just read. If you have spiritual experience with this information, please, by all means, feel free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, Trish will do the pickle dance tonight to get your attention.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example, with a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
Were you about to call my buzzards nuzzards? That's
No,
what it sounded like.
I would never.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
And before we get started, let's take a quick look at how we arrived at this point, because we didn't just randomly open the book to page 66 tonight and say, let's read this. Our meeting started in January of 2020, before COVID. It was an in-person meeting, and then it shut down briefly like the rest of the world did during COVID, came back as hybrid, and then slowly switched into Zoom only. And we start reading the book on the title page, where we see our first promise, how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And we read through the whole forward, prefaces, the doctor's opinion, all those Roman numbers. And then we read all the pages 1 through 164 with our question and answer format. We read it line by line and sentence by sentence and question by answer. And then after that, we read Dr. Bob's Nightmare, and then we spend 2 weeks on the traditions. During our study, we also spend 3 weeks visiting Appendix 2, the spiritual experience, when it's referenced in the footnote. And then our final week of the study, week 94, we do the spiritual experience as a standalone week, just so that we can do a little focus on God and what that spiritual experience or spiritual awakening means to us. And then when we do that, we go all the way back to the beginning and we start all over. So we're in our 4th year of being a meeting, and we're in our 3rd season of going through the book. And each time we go through the book, I learn more stuff and I get deeper into the book. And that's a wonderful thing.
Thank you so much, Trish. And before we start the recap, we'll need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you'd like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website. And on that note, Lisa, welcome.
Hey everybody, I'm Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. Next, we launched out on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Our liquor was but a symptom, so we had to get down to causes and conditions. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods to get rid of them promptly and without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he cannot fool himself about values. We did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, was what had defeated us. We considered its common manifestations. Resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more alcoholics than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease, for we had been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. In dealing with resentments, we set them on paper. We listed people, institutions, or principles with whom we were angry. We asked ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, it was found that our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, our ambitions, our personal relationships, including sex, were hurt or threatened. So we were sure, we were sore, we were burned up. On our grudge list, we set opposite each name our injuries. Was it our self-esteem, our security, our ambitions, our personal or sex relations, which had been interfered with? We were usually as definite as this example. I'm resentful at Mr. Brown, Mrs. Jones, my employer, my wife, and the causes. His attention to my wife, told my wife of my mistress. Brown may get my job at the office. Mrs. Jones, she's a nut. She's snubbed me. She committed her husband for drinking. He's my friend. She's a gossip. Unreasonable, unjust, overbearing, threatens to fire me for drinking and padding my expense account. Misunderstands and nags, likes Brown, wants house put in her name. Affects my sex relations, self-esteem, fear. Sex relations, self-esteem, fear. Security, self-esteem, fear. Personal relationship, self-esteem, fear. Self-esteem, fear. Security. Pride, personal, sex relations. Security, fear. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent was that this world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. The usual outcome was that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, and then we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Excellent job. And this week's study will be read by Jim, and where he starts now is right where we're going to come back to when we get to the questions. Welcome, Jim. Good to have you, brother.
Thank you. Good to be here. Okay, here we go. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment only leads to futility and unhappiness. To the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile. But with the alcoholic, whose hope is the maintenance and growth of a spiritual experience, this business of resentment is infinitely grave. We found that it is fatal. For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the spirit. The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again. And with us, to drink is to die. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. We turned back to the list, for it held the key to the future. We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. In that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. How could we escape? We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how? We could not wish them away any more than alcohol. This was our course. We realized that the people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick. Although we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. We asked God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, "This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me from being angry. Thy will be done." We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. Referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done, we resolutely looked for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Although the situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where were we to blame? The inventory was ours, not the other man's. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before us in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set these matters straight.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you for your service tonight. And we are going to go right back to where Jim started reading. And for the question answers, please speak clearly into your mics. And I have a request. If someone gets lost, please let the person answering the questions help them find their spot. When we have 4 or 5 people chiming in, it just makes it for a little confusion for the person trying to find their place. And Kenny, we will kick it off with you. First question. What becomes plain?
It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness.
Thank you. And Miss Linda, welcome. Good to have you with us tonight. What is the result of thinking about what they did to us and how we are going to get even with them?
Okay, so where would that be?
It's on page 66, and it's right after the line Kenny just read. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads only to futility and unhappiness. Your question is, what is the result of thinking about what they did to us and how we are going to get even with them?
Okay, to the precise extent that we permit these, do we squander the hours that might have been worthwhile?
Thank you very much. William, sir, 2-part question. A, what is the hope of the alcoholic who is trying this program? And B, are resentments a serious matter to alcoholics?
With the alcoholics, hope is making and growth of a spiritual experience. This business of resentment is infinitely great.
Thank you.
We found
And no, that's it right there, sir. Stephanie, how serious are they?
We found that it is fatal.
Thank you. And Marilyn, what do we give up by replaying our resentments?
For when harboring such feelings, we shut ourselves off from the sunlight of the Spirit.
Thank you so much. And Kenny, coming back to you, what happens then?
The insanity of alcohol returns and we drink again.
Thank you. Miss Linda, does the alcoholic quit drinking?
And with us, to drink is to die.
Thank you. William, if we are going to live, what must happen?
if we are to live, we have to be free of anger.
Thank you so much. And Steph, is thinking about the way we can get even okay for alcoholics?
The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us.
Thank you. And Miss Marilyn, two-part question. A, how about for the non-alcoholics? And B, but for alcoholics, they are what?
They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison.
Thank you. Kenny, two-part question, sir. A, what do we go back to? And B, what does it hold for us?
We turn back to the list, for it held the key to the future.
Thank you. Miss Linda, what are we now prepared to do?
We were prepared to look at it from an entirely different angle.
Thank you. And Sir William, what do we begin to see? Oh, William must have oh, there you are. So William, what do we begin to see? Your line starts with "we begin to see."
I'm gonna pass on that and not get you.
Okay, I'm gonna take it to Steph. Steph, what do we begin to see?
We begin to see that the world and its people really dominated us.
Thank you so much. And Miss Marilyn, does it make any difference whether or not the event that caused the resentment actually happened? 2 sentences.
In the state of the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had power to actually kill. However, could we escape?
Thank you. Kenny, coming back to you. What did we see?
We saw that these resentments must be mastered, but how?
Thank you. And Miss Linda, can we carry out a decision to drop all our resentments and forget about them?
We could not wish them away any more than alcohol.
Thank you. Okay, William, you caught up with us now. Your question is, what will be our course?
This was our course.
Keep going.
We realized that this was our course. We realized that people who wronged us were perhaps spiritually sick.
Thank you. And Stephanie, what did we see about the ones who offended us?
Though we did not like their symptoms and the way these disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too.
And I forgot to mention, Trish will be coming in with some comments. So welcome, Trish.
The following is the 4th step resentment prayer.
Miss Marilyn, what do we ask God?
We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend.
Thank you. Kenny, when a person hurts us, what do we pray? Read the rest of the paragraph, please.
When a person offends, we said to ourselves, this is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? God save me for being angry. That will be done.
This prayer is often referred to as the sick man's prayer. But there is also a prayer for us to save us from being angry. And could this be the beginning of forgiveness? It is not possible to be angry and helpful at the same time.
And Miss Linda, coming to you, what do we avoid?
We avoid retaliation or argument.
Okay, thank you. And let me turn off my alerts on my phone so that they won't disturb us. William, why do we avoid that?
We would not treat sick people that way.
Thank you. And Stephanie, what might happen if we do?
If we do, we destroy all chance of being helpful.
Thank you. Marilyn, two-part question. A, can we help everyone? And B, what is the promise of the resentment prayer?
We cannot be helpful to all people, but at least God will show us how to take kindly and tolerant view of each and every one.
Thank you. And Kenny, coming back to you, sir, what do we do next?
Referring to our list again.
Thank you. And Miss Linda, two-part question. A, as we begin, what do we disregard? And B, whose mistakes do we look at?
Referring to our list again.
Nope. Putting out of our minds.
Oh, okay. Putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done. We resolutely looked for our own mistakes.
Thank you. And William, what specifically are we looking for?
Where have we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and pride?
Thank you.
These are the character defects, shortcomings, exact nature of our wrongs, etc.
Okay, so Stephanie, I'm going to ask you two questions, and it's going to be the same answer for both questions. So here comes the first question. Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, what do we try to do regarding the other person?
Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely.
Okay, and I'm coming back to you for the second question as well. Is it all right to place some blame on them? Repeat the sentence, please.
Though a situation had not been entirely our fault, we tried to disregard the other person involved entirely.
Thank you. Miss Marilyn, what are we looking for?
Where were we to blame?
Thank you. And Kenny, whose inventory is this?
The inventory was ours, not the other man.
Thank you. And Miss Linda, what do we do as soon as we see our faults? 2 sentences, please.
When we saw our faults, we listed them.
Keep going. One more sentence.
Okay. We placed them before us in black and white.
Thank you very much. And William gets the final question of the night. What is promised as a result of closely following the directions?
We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to accept these matters straight.
Thank you.
Remember this promise of becoming willing. You will thank God for it when you arrive at step 8.
Boy, howdy, no kidding. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and the hands are lowered. You can remute, and then you can raise your hand with a burning desire to tell us your experience. Or, if you're new, how you think you're going to do it. Uh-oh, everybody's well. Okay. Ready to close out with the closing reading, Trish? Hello, Miss Linda. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. I've read this before, but today I really got a lot out of it. Because on page 67, from the top where it says though, all the way to the bottom, because I read it all the way to the bottom, something really stuck out to me. And what stuck out to me is that we have to be helpful, even if we are offended, even if we have a resentment. We have to understand the person's sick. When we can really stop and just stop being angry, if we can just like the faucet, turn off the hot water, turn off the anger for 1 minute and think about the depth of this person's sickness that offended you and what they did. Just if you just sit for a minute in that, it's like, Dad, they don't even know how sick they are. It's like, wow. When you can get to that point, because see, you took yourself out of it, and that's what they're telling you right here, you know, and that where it says we avoid retaliation. That's what it's saying. It's saying, take away yourself. Get out of the way. Take yourself out of the situation and take a look at them. How can I be helpful in this situation? Am I going to put my foot in my mouth and then take one out to put the other one in? Am I going to be prideful? Am I going to tell you a piece of my mind? Has this challenged me? Has it hit any of my insecurities? And it's right here. It's right here. I'm resentful at. And it says it. The insecurity, the pride, the self-esteem, the fears. So if I can just put all of that in a box and lock it for 1 minute and stop and do God's will, then I can manage this situation better. Because what it's really saying in here, if you go deep and you just pull out that message, if you dig deep, you do a serious inventory and you pull it out, God is just asking you, you know, you got to help this person. How can you be helpful? And that's a lot to ask somebody that's just been offended, how they can be helpful. What? I got to understand this person? I got to help them? And they just offended me? They just stabbed me in the back? They just did dirt to me? What? And see, I have to get to that point and that level in my recovery. I have to align my will with God's will. Test for self-will, test for God's will. And if I can align my will with God, if I can let go of my pride and my ego and my offense, because we have the St. Francis of Assisi prayer, you know, make me a channel of thy peace. You know, if I can just do that, then I can look and see and I can understand how I'm going to be helpful in this situation. Because how I react, how I respond, it weighs a lot on how this whole situation is going to play out, what direction it's going to go in. You know, I don't know if I had mentioned this, but there was somebody that was texting me, and to me they were being a busybody. They were trying to tell me how to sponsor someone, and I was like, this girl needs to give it a rest. She needs to give it a rest. She got $2 over lunch money. She been here 1 minute, and she just, blah, 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 you know. And see, I was like that too when I had 2 years. I didn't realize myself. I thought I had it going on, you know. Had so much recovery, I'm going to help everybody, you know. And I got to understand it hit my pride and my ego, you know. And I have to be honest and vulnerable and admit that. But when she said something that really aggravated me in that text, I did a countdown. And I took a deep breath and I was like, you know, she needs to give it a rest. What is with this text and why people don't pick up the phone and call each other and communicate that way? And I got really offended by what she put in that text. So how I responded, not reacted, was because it was about me trying to resolve the situation. And I said to her in the text, I called her and I left a voicemail and I said, you know what? I am not sure. I don't understand what you said in that text and I don't want to misinterpret it. So please give me a call and let's talk. And I said in a really nice voice. I could have said in a hostile voice, but I said in a really nice voice. And she called me back. And I said, I'm not sure what you were saying. I said, what did you mean about this line? You know, I wasn't trying to put her in a corner. I wasn't trying to trap her, but I wanted her to explain to me. I'm not going to misinterpret your words. I can assume this and that, but I need to know, what are you really saying? Then I'll know, should I get a resentment or not? So she did go ahead and explain, and she was like, it wasn't even geared to me. And I'm so glad that I said that to her. I have to give the benefit of the doubt before I accuse this person. And this is what I learned in AA. How can I be helpful in a situation? Instead of prideful, accusatory, offended, easily offended. You know, when you say something about me, you know. And you know, I'm just grateful that I have better coping skills. You know, and I told her, I said, you know what? I said, I don't like to text back and forth because that's how miscommunication can occur. I said, and people get into texting wars. I said, and it gets malicious. I said, another thing, I said, I want you to know, texting wars are very immature. And she got real quiet. See, some people don't understand that, but it is. It's very immature. I had to tell one person that, a family member, I said, stop texting that person. Stop it. You're locked in their nonsense, and you're going around and around, and you're spinning your wheels, and you just went into the black hole. You just went into that sinkhole, and you're going nowhere fast. You know, so this is what this tells me right here. Treating sick people, understanding them. How can I be of service? How can I help? After I've been kicked or offended, I still have to do it. And that's a lot, but to do, but at least it's telling us, at least it's showing me that I can stop and I can understand, and then I can really take myself out of this situation. I can stop and I can turn around and say, I need to help this person. I don't need to turn around and go back at them, go after them, you know, come for them. Because some people will give you a resentment purposely to make you react, because that's what they have inside of their heart. You know, and that's not for me to change other people, but I just don't have to be that one to turn around and every time someone's giving me a resentment that I'm jumping off on it, because I will be tired by the end of the day if I do. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Miss Linda. Have a wonderful evening. Stephanie, welcome, sister.
Hello, Stephanie, recovered alcoholic. I had a situation with a coworker decades ago, I suppose, and had found out over the past 6 months that she was still holding a resentment against me. She was that type of a person, and she was probably the most bitter, miserable person I've ever met in my life. But we had something come up at work, and it was like a 50th anniversary or something, and she had told another coworker that she was not going to come to it because I would be there. And so I took pen to paper and I sent her a letter, and you know, I owned my part of the problem, the situation. But she didn't let it go. And that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And I feel, you know, I can't do any more than I did. Try to make amends with her and own up to my part, but holding resentments is ugly. It's really ugly. And it's so damaging, self-destructive. So that's it. That's my experience with resentment from a different side.
Thank you, sister. So good to see you tonight. Glad you're here. Toe tapping, come on in.
Hey everybody, I'm Trish. I'm an alcoholic. And what really jumped out at me tonight is at the bottom of 66. It comments on the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. And how could we escape? And, you know, I hung on to resentments for years. From my own perspective, from my own perception. and and was miserable. It affected the relationship. It affected relationships of people around me, of people around them, of people around both of us. Some of which I don't know if they'll ever be repaired back to the way they were. But when I finally put pen to paper, did inventory on this people, the realization was it was a resentment about actions fancied, not real. And when I was able to look at it, at the reality of the situation, and from their perspective, from their viewpoint, all the anger went away. And sometimes if I can look at a resentment I'm carrying from someone else's point of view and from their perspective, it may make perfect sense for them, what they did, what they said, how they acted. And in some cases, it may be all they know because it's what they were brought up with. And if I can look at that and not take personal what they've done, and realize they're doing what they were taught to do when they were children. And that's the way they're acting towards me, possibly. Or look at it from the reality of that didn't really happen, it was just my own twisted thinking. And once I was able to untangle the knot of yarn or untangle the spaghetti ball and realized what the reality was, and got a whole new perspective, I was able to forgive, I was able to move on. Change my perspective, not just in the thinking, but in that whole relationship. And the relationship's gotten a whole lot better. But like I said, there's residual people on the outside who were affected, and I don't know if it's ever going to get any better for them. But I've also had discussion with them, one of them, to explain the circumstances around it in hopes that maybe there can be some forgiveness too, because I hate the fact that my imagined resentment on somebody is affecting their relationship with somebody else. But like Steph said, I've done my part. I put pen to paper. I found my truth, shared my truth with somebody else, and now it's between that person and their God on if they're going to be able to restore the relationship. But it's something that I'm well aware of now as I work with others, that as they're talking, as they're sharing, looking at circumstances, and is this a real or is this an imagined? Or is this a real circumstances or is this fancied, as the book says? And sometimes I find for me that some of the resentments I carry are made up stories in my own head and so far from the truth that, why am I even believing it? But I just got stuck on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Trish. All right, it works. It really does. Come on in, Pinky.
Hi, Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. Thank you, everybody, doing service in the meeting. So this part, I can definitely relate to that, where we started. It is plain that a life which includes deep resentment leads to only futility and unhappiness. Wow. Yeah, when I came in here, I was completely unhappy and almost dead. That's what I was doing for myself. My life run on self-will was absolutely, it was dangerous. And then I was given tools and this process of the fourth step and looking at my part, right? Putting out of my mind the wrongs others had done. able to identify today that that they're sick, they're spiritually sick, and so using that prayer on the top of page 67, I take that with me often. And I like the direction. We avoid retaliation or argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way. If we do, we destroy our chance of being helpful. When I find myself irritable, discontent, or being selfish, or the resentments like brewing, I'm like, all right, and I have that conversation with God, and I look at myself, and I quickly try to identify what's blocking me. Asking myself, are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? And then what character defects are blocking me out slowly in the spirit? Because I can't be of maximum service to God and to the people about me if I'm running in self-will. And what step 4 allowed me to do is put my self-will behaviors in that 4th column. And, for the longest time, I would stop at column 4. And then it says, and we were willing to set these matters straight. Well, those are the assets I'm striving for. And that's column 5. And, when I can see what I should have done instead, or who God wants me to be instead, that helps me. Because if I just put the problem down on the paper, you've sunk me, right? Like, yes, I know I have a problem, but is there anything positive here? And that really helped me, that part. And we're willing to set matters straight. But that gives me hope to see that, one, I'm capable of being unselfish, tolerant, patient, right? Not just on my time, more today on God's time than mine. Because I have these tools that I can pick up, and the prayers I use, and sometimes I ad-lib them into my own little, because I don't have them memorized word for word, but in the moment of fire, I try to put it out with whatever I can grab, because I was resentful of a lot of things for a very, very long time, and today I can get upset about stuff and I can get disturbed, but I can honestly say I have not had a resentment in a while. And if the anger tries to, or I shouldn't say anger, but the irritation of a situation tries to come back to me, then I ask God to give me clarity on what I haven't already uncovered that's still there, because something I haven't identified. And I never had the desire to do that until I saw the miracles come from putting in that work. And now I'm quick to, get out of it. Get out of that feeling. It's not fun. And I'll share this last part is, next month I'll have an opportunity, God willing, it's all God willing. The first date they gave me was July 8th, and I had to tell them, I got plane tickets, we're going to be in Tennessee, and then so they gave me a date of July 22nd. But that will be the first time in almost 8 years that I'll be in a room with my ex-husband and his wife, discussing my oldest daughter. And so I'm not worried about it, because you want to know why? I have nothing to hide. Absolutely nothing to hide. I know what brought me in these rooms, and I know who brought me to where I am today. Without God, I can't. Without me, He won't. So I let Him. I've been saying this all along, is that I'm not going to push this. It's got to be on God's time. I don't want to push this. And You know, I still don't know what's going to happen, but I know I don't have resentment towards these people because we are in this situation because of my sickness. And I'm okay with that today because I didn't know what I did know then. And, you know, it's all in God's time, and I'm not going to do morbid reflection because there's warnings about that in the big book. And I'm good on feeling any of that icky. So, you know, and every time I turn it over and give it to God, the miracles happen. You know, last week I was down for 2 days. So I barely moved. But you know what? It was good in those days. I no longer have a first grader. She finished school. She'll start second grade in the fall. You know, there was still so much good in those days. And I've only had that change in perception because of this way of life. I would have focused on the one thing that was what I call today an opportunity. And, you know, we know where that takes. But that one thing that kept me still or slowed me way down for those 2 days, I was able to take in so much and enjoy life as it was being lived around me. You know, there was always moments for opportunity because, you know, I'm not perfect, but yeah, I'm definitely living a life beyond my wildest dreams, and I couldn't do this without God, the big book, and all of you. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, sister, and I'm so proud of you. Dancing Pickle, welcome.
Hi, everybody. It's been a while since I've shared. I have a new schedule that kind of interferes with this meeting time, but I decided that I could listen whenever I have the opportunity. And tonight I actually have a couple of minutes to share because I find this part of the book just so very important. Resentments for me, I've discovered, are almost always based in fear. Fear that I've done something wrong. Fear that the other person won't like me if I share my feelings with them. If I'm feeling hurt, or if I'm feeling put upon or shamed or whatever by something they've said. I have been able to grow in relationships and let go of a lot of the fear. I'm not going to tell you I'm 100%. But every time I face the fear, the resentment disappears because I face the fear, I've talked it out with the other person, and the honesty that flows between, it just takes resentment away. And even if my honesty is not well taken, I am no longer hanging on to something that isn't hurting anyone but me, in most cases. You know that old saying about drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, right? It just doesn't happen. What happens is my gut hurts, or my head hurts, or anything. Just, you know, especially the gut or the head. And when I let go of that, when I confront my fear, I'm not hurting anyone, and I'm taking care of myself as well as the relationship with the other person. And in turn, I'm helping them. At least that's been my experience. Thank you for letting me share. It's good to see you all.
Good to see
I
you
love
too,
you.
sister. Thank you so much. William, come on in, brother.
My name is William. I just want to say hello to you. And definitely this reading stands out. Whenever I was on the Latin tongue, rock hard as if I couldn't see. Definitely the part that stood out for me. All of it stands out. But the one stood out for most is you notice that the word here is bracket alongside the difficult with Mr. Brown, Mr. Jones, and for you in the wild. That short word somehow touches about every aspect of our life. And definitely was controlling my life before I did. And through reading this, I found out why it was doing this. If you go back over to page 62 of this, 62, let's talk about the selfish and self-centeredness, which is the root of my disease. And behind 62, come back over here to page, let me see right here. Anyhow, he's talking about I have to stop playing God. I wasn't a good God. Learn of God in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was that type of God. I had a shoot to send you straight down to the devil. You wasn't doing an act the way I thought you should. I will push you to that chute and let you go where I thought that I could control you. But as I stayed here, I picked up a God because I seen what had happened in my life. Patience, tolerance, unconditional love, and all those good attributes that I didn't have before because of the selfish and self-centeredness, fear, and resentment, and anger, and pride, you know. And in the book, he talks about pride. He said pride and fear was the out of all those God-given instincts, pride and fear led to sex. Pride said, I dare you to look terribly, I dare you to look this way, you know. And that's just the way my life was. I came here and got so deep. And all that stuff that I was so afraid that I was going to lose, I wasn't going to get, I was okay with what I had. You know, because as I look back over my life, I see God had blessed me already. But it was just playing a different kind of God that I picked up in the room of alcohol. Trying to deal with life situations. So thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. I'm going to go ahead and come in and share, but we have like 17 minutes left, folks, so don't make me a lone wolf here. Even if you happen to be in the process of doing your 4-step, or you have recently done some serious 4-step work, by all means, please come in. Feel free to come in and share. Now I'm going to start off with something that we always start off with our 4-step workshop. You know what I got to Alcoholics Anonymous with? A whole bunch of emotional baggage. And that's why I do a 4-step, because I have been carrying this emotional baggage around my entire life. Some of it goes back to the time I was a child, and certainly goes through relationship after relationship after relationship. And our 4-step helps me to learn how to be free of that emotional baggage. So I'm going to go back to the last paragraph in tonight's recap because it's relative. We went back through our lives. Nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. When we were finished, we considered it carefully. The first thing apparent is that the world and its people were often quite wrong. To conclude that others were wrong was as far as most of us ever got. Most of us see that diagram on page 65, and that's it. It's only those 3 columns. However, it's not. And this paragraph goes on to continue. The usual outcome is that people continued to wrong us and we stayed sore. Sometimes it was remorse, and we were sore at ourselves. But the more we fought and tried to have our own way, the worse matters got. As in war, the victor only seemed to win. Our moments of triumph were short-lived. So, in my experience, I'm here to take a look at the truth about me, folks. The program, me getting sober, and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous has nothing to do with me trying to change the rest of the world. But it has everything to do with me becoming changed by practicing a spiritual way of living. And taking my inventory is part of that pathway of spiritual living. It's really pretty simple. So, as we go through to tonight's study, it goes on to talk about the fatality of it and harboring such resentments and stuff, and how it shuts us off from the sunlight of the Spirit, and this insanity of alcohol returns and we drink. I have known numerous people in Alcoholics Anonymous who picked up a drink after decades of sobriety because of a resentment that they never ever let go of. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They may be the dubious luxury of normal men, but for alcoholics, these things are poison. You know, all of those things are toxic to me. They're toxic to my spirit. And when I live in those things, when I live in anger, when I live in unrealistic expectation of others, I have choices. The best choice is to learn how to not live in unrealistic expectations. But anger is something that has to be processed. And step 4 gives me a process to process that anger. My sponsor taught me very early on that anger is nothing more than aged hurt. It doesn't take very long for my feelings, when they are hurt, for me to become angry. The byproduct of the anger is resentment. The byproduct of the resentment is my retaliation and lashing out towards others. When you know what they have to say might be absolutely 100% correct about me. One thing's for sure, if I react badly, I am 100% wrong, no matter what. This is the beginning of learning how to truthfully, honestly look at myself. And by the way, beating the hell out of ourselves. I'm a this and I'm a that, and I used to call myself all kinds of colorful names, is not a moral inventory. That's just beating me up. And that's not what this is about. It is a fact-finding mission to find the truth about me, of the things that I find unacceptable about myself. You know, and of course the following steps give me the pathway to heal from all of that as well. I'm in a total agreement with Trish that in that state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. How could we escape? And it's talking about resentment. You know, keep in mind, when we are at this point in the book, we are already putting pen to paper in it. You know, right after, but for the alcoholic, these things are poison. What does it tell us? Oh my gosh. We turned back to our list, for it held the key to the future. It's not re-examining everything that I've already written, who I'm resentful at, why I'm resentful, and how it affected me. I'm turning back to the list to take a look at my behavior. I always say the first 3 columns are about the resentment. Everything after that is about me. And guess what, folks? If I'm not willing to look at the other work that goes into this, my defects of character, my fears, my harms list, which are all given to me through this work, and my sex inventory, which has nothing to do with the act of sex itself, but it has everything to do with how I act in the relationships with my significant others. And I've had many significant others in my life. If I'm not willing to do that, and to do all of those 7 areas, you know what? I'm not being thorough and fearless, and I'm not being honest, because I'm still trying to hide something. Now here's the deal. I already know about it. God already knows about it. Eventually I'm going to do a 5th step. And what that sponsor is going to do for me is help me find a pathway to make things right. It's really pretty simple. Now I'll tell you a little story about my sponsor. He's a real wise guy, as in full of wisdom. And I shared my very first resentment with him, and he asked me this question. He said, "Are you willing to forgive that person?" And I'm like, "Oh, hell no, don't you understand what I told you that they did?" And in his wisdom, he leaned back against the pool table. He smoked back in those days, lit a cigarette, and didn't say a word. But he let me think. And here's what came to me. If I want to be forgiven for the things that I have done wrong in life, it makes perfect sense that I have to have the spirit of forgiveness in my heart. If it's true what we ask, and these were the exact thoughts that went through my mind that night. If it's true what we ask in the Lord's Prayer, to be forgiven as we forgive, then I need to have the spirit of forgiveness in my heart. And we took a look at the sick man prayer tonight, or also known as the 4th step prayer. And the idea of asking God how I can be helpful to this person, even though it doesn't use these words, what it does is it plants the seed of forgiveness in my heart. And then there's that prayer, God save me from being angry. This is one of the times that I'm asking God for something for myself. Oh, you know what else that does? It plants another seed of forgiveness, of the idea of forgiveness in my heart. So back to back, it plants 2 seeds. I can tell you I walked away from my 5th step that night with forgiveness in my heart towards everyone except for the first resentment that I shared with my sponsor. But I walked away with the idea that someday I can have the spirit of forgiveness in my heart. It took 28 years for that to produce fruit. And when it did, it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And it was a deceased person. It was my father. And I went to his grave and I wrote a letter and I wept. And I read the letter to him, and I shoved my 28-year medallion against his headstone, and I walked away completely a free man. I love it when I hear people in the program for a long time talk about their resentments in the present tense, right here, right now, in this moment. Our program is designed that if I am thoroughly following it, I should not get resentful. And if I am resentful, I need to go back to the work in order to heal from the resentment. It really is amazing. I am going to touch on this real quick. Sometimes when we're new, and sometimes when we have a lifetime of some emotional baggage, especially very tough emotional baggage, and you just can't sort anything out because there's just this one thing that is so hot and so heavy. It's okay to call your sponsor, your grand sponsor, somebody in your sponsorship family, and work through this individual resentment by talking with them. Because maybe they're going to ask a series of questions that will help you find the answer and look at the truth. That being said, we still write it down while we're doing that. We still write it down in all the columns, and we do all the work, and we look at all the fears, and we look at the harms, and we do all of that. But sometimes just doing that with one resentment will help unblock us from moving forward. And well, I guess I did take up all the time. I love you all dearly. Thank you so much for being here. Primary purpose does not exist without you. Primary purpose does not exist without your contribution. Touch on this real quick. Art, thank you for your wonderful job on Tradition 5 tonight. That's what this group is about, is carrying the message that is in this book. This isn't the My Cat Died meeting. And I'm sorry if your cat recently died, but it's the Not My Dead Cat meeting. This is the meeting where hope and experience is shared to help another alcoholic find sobriety. And what is my duty and responsibility once I have found that, is to go out and pass it along to the next newcomer that God puts in my life. Or maybe the old timer who's struggling, and maybe it just simply starts with seeing somebody who's in pain and walking up to them with a cup of coffee and say, hey, here's a cup of coffee. Would you like to talk? It's amazing how this program works. It's amazing how we can heal from the emotional baggage. And once we do, that emotional baggage becomes an asset that God uses for us to help somebody else. So, on that note, I'm going to shut up, except for this. As Nicole's driving down the road there, I can see she's in the red light district because flashes of red keep lighting up the car. Thank you. I love you all. Want to take us out, Trish?
I would love to take us out, unless somebody else wants to put their hand up.
Yeah, if you want to share, please feel free to share. I did not mean to take so much time, and hey, we don't really run on a clock in this group.
Nope. Hi, Brian.
Brian, welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really on the fourth step in terms of resentment, but still basically working through my first step of understanding I am an alcoholic, and I understand it. I know I am, but there's always those thoughts of, well, maybe you could
thing. But I gotta say that hearing resentments, when I first heard about that, I thought to myself, I don't think I have any resentments. I don't consider myself an angry person, and someone who holds grudges, but I do actually. I actually am a person that does hold grudges. I've come to realize that, and I guess on my own, just for my own personal, I've tried to let go of some of these betrayals or hurts that I've had. But I know I haven't fully released them. I'm not where maybe I used to be. And just in thinking about all this, I used to go out to drink, to forget. And then, my angers became an excuse to drink because I was angry about this. I had a bad day. And I just try to, let this stuff go just because I have held on to some of it for a long time. And, at the same time, too, when I do drink, if it, once I start thinking about it, it just brings me to a very dark, rageful place. And even more so because of alcohol. And, I want to drink to have a good time, but now I'm just angry and I'm just rageful and I can't let it go. I'm just going over and over it in my mind. And thankfully, I've never been in a situation where that rage has had reason to come out. Because, who knows how that would have happened or manifested. It's just stayed with me. But, I think I do understand that I do have these resentments that maybe I didn't think were resentments or things that I thought I'd let go of or, I wouldn't necessarily say forgiven, but I moved past. I just distanced myself from certain people and whatnot. But, I'm just doing that type of work and just kind of thinking through it. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for being here, and come back and join us anytime. Love to have you. And we have several of our other meetings in the chat. Anybody else want to take a bite out of the apple? Gosh, everybody's so shy. It's like going to first grade on your first day of school, All right, Trish.
From page 164 out of our book. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to Him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here again. There will be 263 alcoholics who die in this country tonight from untreated alcoholism. There will be 95,000 in this country this year and 3 million worldwide. We're all here because somebody else prayed for us when we couldn't pray for ourselves. So after a moment of silence, let's take that moment for somebody else and then close out in the usual Primary Pickles style of the virtual circle up. So here is your moment. Thank you. Who will take us from shame to grace if we let Him? Our Father,
Our Father,
who art in heaven,
who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name.
hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom
Thy
come,
kingdom come,
thy will be
thy
done,
will be done,
on earth
on
as it
earth
is in
as
heaven.
it is in heaven.
Give us this day
Give
our
us
daily
this day
bread,
our daily bread,
and
and
forgive us our
forgive us our
trespasses,
trespasses,
as we forgive those who trespass against us.
against us.
and lead us not into
not into
temptation,
temptation,
but deliver
but
us from
deliver
evil.
us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom, the
Thine is the
power,
kingdom,
and the glory, forever and
Now,
ever. Amen.
forever and ever.
Thank,
Amen.
thank you so much, folks.
Good night, everyone.
and let